They called her, just the radio girl. Not to her face, not always, but loud enough. On paper, Petty Officer Ava Carter was a combat communications specialist attached to a Tier 1 unit operating under Joint Special Operations Command. That meant she handled encrypted frequencies, satellite uplinks, ISR coordination, and emergency extraction comms. It meant she carried more batteries than ammunition and knew more call signs than birthdays. But to some of the operators in the hangar that night, she was just the radio girl. The desert airstrip in the Middle East buzzed under sodium lights. Blacked-out helicopters idled in the distance. The smell of jet fuel mixed with sand and tension. SEAL Team 6 stood in a loose semicircle around a folding table layered with maps and thermal imagery. The mission was surgical, HVT capture. A compound outside a hostile city. High walls, possible underground tunnels, multiple armed guards, time-sensitive intel, and embedded with them tonight, communications control, was Ava. She adjusted the headset resting around her neck and checked the satellite terminal clipped to her vest. Every frequency pre-programmed, every fallback channel mapped, every drone feed routed through her system. Hope your batteries last, one operator muttered with a smirk as he locked a magazine into his rifle. She didn't look up. They will, she replied calmly. Unlike your temper. A few chuckles broke the tension. Across the table, the team leader, callsign Reaper, watched her closely. He didn't laugh. He didn't underestimate. He'd seen enough operations go sideways to know something. The quiet ones were rarely the weak ones. Rotor blades began to spin faster. Green light. They loaded into the birds. The night swallowed them whole. The flight was low and fast. Nap of the earth. No lights. No margin for error. Ava sat between two operators, laptop strapped to her chest plate, cables feeding into encrypted transmitters. Drone feed flickered alive on her display. Thermal signatures. 4 heat sources on the north wall. 2 roving patrols. 1 rooftop overwatch. She tapped Reaper's shoulder and tilted the screen. Additional movement west side. Not in the brief. He leaned closer. Armed. Long guns. Pattern inconsistent. Could be QRF. His jaw tightened. Intel had said light resistance. This wasn't light, but the mission continued. The helicopters flared just beyond the objective and the team dismounted in a silent storm of sand and darkness. Ava moved with them, staying center formation, antenna angled correctly to maintain satellite lock. They breached the outer perimeter clean. 2 guards neutralized. No alarms. They stacked on the compound door. 3, 2, 1. Flashbang. Entry. Controlled chaos. Rooms cleared with ruthless precision. Ava stayed just outside the threshold, relaying room status, updating overhead drone patterns, tracking friendly positions on her screen. Then it happened. The first crack of gunfire didn't come from inside the compound. It came from the darkness beyond the walls. Then another. Then 10. Contact north and west. Tracer rounds tore through plaster. Ava's drone feed glitched. Then expanded, revealing at least 15 armed fighters converging from surrounding alleys. It wasn't random, it was coordinated. They had walked into an ambush. Reaper, you have multiple hostiles flanking from 320 degrees. Secondary element from 280. They're boxing you. Copy. Explosions rocked the courtyard. 1 SEAL went down. Man hit. Man hit. Ava dropped to a knee beside him, bullets snapping overhead. She wasn't a medic, but she could apply pressure. Stay with me, she muttered, pressing gauze into the wound. Rounds hammered the outer wall. The team returned fire, but they were surrounded, and worse, radio, interference spiked, her screen flickered, signal degradation, jamming. Someone out there knew exactly how they operated. Reaper, she said sharply. They're attempting comms disruption. How long? Depends how good they are. A rocket-propelled grenade struck the southern wall. Debris rained down. Ava's headset went silent for half a second. Then static. Then nothing. Primary channel. Dead. She switched to secondary. Nothing. Her heart pounded. They were cut off. No air support. No external QRF. No command. Just them. And an enemy who clearly expected them. Reaper slid beside her behind a shattered concrete barrier. Tell me you've got something. She exhaled slowly. Her fingers moved rapidly over the keyboard. She detached the primary antenna, rewired to backup satellite alignment, adjusted frequency hopping pattern manually. They're jamming conventional bands, she said. But they're not blocking upper narrow burst transmissions. He stared at her. English. I can punch a micro window signal through. It'll be weak. Short burst. But it'll reach command. How long? 30 seconds to align. Do it. Bullets chewed through the barrier inches from her face. She worked. Sweat stung her eyes. 20 seconds. 15. 10. An explosion rocked the courtyard again. Another SEAL yelled in pain. She locked the signal. Burst window open, she whispered. Sending SIDREP now. Data transmitted in encrypted compression packets. Casualties, enemy count, coordinates, urgent extraction request. 3 seconds. 5. 7. Transmission complete. Then the screen flashed. Acknowledged. Relief washed through her chest. But it wasn't over, because air support was still 12 minutes out. And they were pinned. Reaper checked his ammo. Radio girl, he said, breathing hard, what else you got? She looked up. For the first time that night, her eyes weren't calm. They were calculating. They're coordinating off handhelds, she said. Short range, analog. He frowned. And I can hear them. She pulled off one earcup and adjusted a small side receiver she kept as redundancy. Amid the chaos, faint voices in another language crackled. Orders, movement, flank commands. They think you're retreating east, she said quickly. They're shifting west heavy. Reaper grinned grimly. Then we won't retreat east. He signaled the team. Counter flank, hard push west. They moved with violent precision, breaking the encirclement exactly where the enemy least expected. Ava fed them enemy positions in real time from intercepted chatter. Twice she warned of incoming grenades seconds before they landed. Once she redirected them away from a hidden machine gun nest. Minutes felt like hours. Gunfire thundered through the night. And slowly, painfully, the ambush began to collapse. But then, her screen flickered again. New thermal signatures. Not 15. Not 20. 30. Reinforcements. Reaper saw her expression change. What? Her voice was steady. They brought friends. Helicopter rotors thundered in the distance. Air support, but still too far. Too high. Too slow to hit precise targets without updated coordinates. Ava made a decision. One that would erase, just the radio girl, forever. She grabbed the laser designator clipped to her vest. You don't have clearance for that, one operator shouted. I do now, she replied. She climbed the broken staircase to the rooftop amid active gunfire. Rounds cracked past her. Concrete chipped around her boots. She hit the roof and dropped low, scanning through smoke and dust. Enemy technical truck mounting a heavy weapon approached from the north alley. She painted it with the laser. Target marked. Grid uploading. Confirm visual from bird. Static. Then, visual confirmed. Missile away. The explosion tore the alley apart. She shifted. Marked another cluster behind a wall. Second strike. Direct hit. Below her, the SEALs pushed outward with renewed force. Air support now had eyes. Because of her. But then a sniper round smashed into the parapet inches from her head. She flattened. Another round. They had eyes on her. She crawled to a new position and continued marking targets. One by one, each strike shrinking the kill zone. Until finally, the gunfire thinned, the shouting faded, and silence reclaimed the compound. Reaper climbed to the rooftop. She was still prone, laser steady, scanning for movement. It's clear, he said quietly. She lowered the device. Only then did her hands start shaking. He extended a hand and helped her up. Below them, the team secured the area. Casualties, 2 wounded, stable. Enemy, neutralized or fled. Mission objective, captured alive inside a hidden tunnel she had identified via thermal anomaly mid-firefight. Extraction birds descended. As they loaded up, one of the operators, the same one who'd joked about batteries, paused in front of her. Hey, she looked up. He nodded toward the battlefield behind them. Good thing your batteries lasted. For the first time, she smiled. The helicopters lifted into the dawn. Inside the cabin, bruised, blood-streaked, exhausted warriors sat in silence. No one called her the radio girl anymore. Reaper leaned back against the metal wall and looked at her. You didn't just save comms tonight, he said. You saved us. She didn't respond. She simply adjusted her headset and watched the sunrise break over the horizon. Because this wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about keeping them alive. And this was only the beginning. Part 2. The sunrise didn't feel warm. It felt earned. The helicopters cut across the pale horizon, rotors slicing the morning air as if trying to outrun what had almost happened. Inside the cabin, nobody spoke. The wounded were stable. The HVT was zip-tied, hooded, silent. Blood, some friendly, some not, dried into the grooves of gloves and sleeves. Cordite clung to the air like a memory that refused to fade. Ava Carter sat against the metal wall, laptop closed now, headset resting around her neck. Her hands had stopped shaking, but only on the outside. Across from her, Reaper watched quietly. No praise speech, no applause, just understanding. Back at the forward operating base, debrief would come. Questions, reports, intelligence fallout, investigations into how the ambush was orchestrated. But right now, they were alive. And that mattered. When the helicopters touched down, medics rushed forward. The wounded were transferred. The HVT was taken into custody. Operators dispersed toward debrief rooms. Ava moved toward the comms trailer. Habit, instinct, duty. She powered up the system before she even removed her gloves. Satellite logs began scrolling across her screen. She rewound the transmission timeline from the ambush. There, signal spike, not random jamming, directional, targeted. Her jaw tightened. They hadn't just walked into an ambush. They'd been tracked. Footsteps approached behind her. Reaper stepped inside the trailer and shut the door. Tell me, he said quietly. She rotated the laptop toward him. Jamming originated from 3 mobile nodes. They triangulated your insertion vector before you breached. He stared at the waveform patterns. That's not insurgent-level tech. No, she agreed. It isn't. Silence settled between them. Leak, he asked. She hesitated. Either that, or someone studying your playbook very closely. Debrief was tense. Intelligence officers combed through every detail. The captured HVT was linked to a regional logistics network, but nothing suggested the kind of coordinated response they'd encountered. Until Ava presented her findings. She displayed the signal analysis on a projector inside the secure briefing room. 3 synchronized jamming sources, she explained. Military-grade frequency sweepers. They anticipated our fallback bands within seconds. One intelligence analyst frowned. You're suggesting state-level support. I'm suggesting someone knew what frequencies we would use, she replied evenly. The room quieted. Reaper folded his arms. Meaning we were expected. The weight of that settled heavily. Because Tier 1 units were not supposed to be predictable. After the briefing, operators dispersed to clean weapons and reset gear. Ava remained seated in the empty conference room. The label, "Just the Radio Girl," echoed faintly in memory. It felt distant now, but something else felt closer. A pattern. She reopened her laptop, pulled archived mission logs from the past 6 months. Cross-referenced comm disruptions, minor glitches previously dismissed as environmental interference. But now, they aligned. Small test pulses, signal mapping. Someone had been probing them for months. Her breath slowed. This wasn't about one ambush. This was preparation. A knock on the door broke her concentration. It was the operator who'd joked about her batteries. He leaned against the frame. Heard you dropped missiles like you were ordering takeout. She gave a small shrug. They were pre-authorized assets. He smirked. Still, not bad for the Radio Girl. There was no sarcasm now. Just respect. He stepped fully inside. Reaper wants you in the hangar. When she arrived, the team stood gathered around a digital map table. But this wasn't a capture briefing. It was different, urgent. Reaper nodded as she approached. We're not done, he said. She studied the screen. New intel. Intercepted chatter overnight. Enemy communication celebrating the ambush attempt. Claiming they had measured the American shadow. Measured. Her stomach tightened. Reaper continued. Higher command wants a response. Immediate. Controlled. No footprint. One operator raised an eyebrow. We just walked into a trap. Exactly, Reaper said. Now they think they understand us. He looked at Ava. Do they? She met his gaze. No. The new mission was surgical in a different way. Not a raid. Not a capture. It was counterintelligence. Find the jamming nodes. Identify the tech supplier. Disrupt the network without triggering escalation. In this time, Ava wasn't just attached. She was essential. Night fell again. But this time, the insertion was different. No helicopters. High altitude drop beyond radar corridors. They moved on foot through broken terrain toward a communications relay suspected of housing one of the mobile jammers. Ava walked near the center of formation, scanning portable spectrum analyzer data in real time. Wind cut across the desert ridge. No lights, no chatter. After 2 hours of movement, her device pinged. Signal spike, she whispered. Reaper crouched beside her. Distance, 600 meters. Moving slowly. Thermal optics confirmed a small convoy, 2 trucks, 1 SUV, parked near a temporary antenna mast disguised as agricultural equipment. Reaper studied it. Too small for a main hub. Agreed, she said, but it's feeding something larger. He nodded. Plan. She zoomed into the signal cascade. There's a handshake pulse every 40 seconds. That's uplink to a primary source. Can you trace it? Not from here. He watched her think. If we capture the relay intact, she continued, I can reverse the signal origin. One operator muttered, so instead of blowing it up, we babysit it. Yes, she replied calmly. Because whoever is on the other end thinks they're safe. Reaper made the call. Silent approach. 2 guards eliminated without a sound. The team secured the vehicles. Ava moved directly to the relay console. Laptop out. Cables connected. She bypassed the encryption layer. The handshake pulse ticked again. 40 seconds. She injected a ghost packet into the return channel. Next pulse. There. Location ping. She froze. That's not possible. Reaper crouched beside her. What? She turned the screen. The origin signal wasn't coming from across the border. It wasn't from a foreign military base. It wasn't even from this region. It was bouncing through a secure relay that traced back to a classified server hub used by Allied contractors. Silence swallowed the night. You're sure? Reaper asked. Positive. One operator swore under his breath. The implications were dangerous. This wasn't just enemy adaptation. This was compromise. Reaper made a decision that would never appear in official reports. Pull everything you can, he told Ava. Then wipe this relay like it never existed. She worked fast. Data streams copied, metadata harvested, routing keys extracted. When she finished, she triggered a firmware overload. The relay sparked and died. They vanished into the darkness before anyone responded. Back at base, Ava locked herself inside the secure comms vault. She analyzed the extracted data for hours. What she found was worse than suspected. The contractor server had been infiltrated weeks earlier. Backdoor access, mission pattern analysis, frequency modeling. Someone inside the broader system had unknowingly, or knowingly, enabled the ambush. Reaper stood behind her as she finished connecting the final dots. This wasn't about killing us, he said slowly. No, she agreed. It was about studying you. Understanding reaction, time, fallback tactics, air support delay. It was battlefield analytics, and they were the test subjects. Reaper's voice hardened. Then we flipped the script. 2 nights later, a message went out. Deliberate, encrypted, but traceable. It suggested another high-value raid in a nearby province. The pattern mirrored previous operations. Insertion vector, comms bands, time window. It was bait. Ava embedded subtle anomalies into the transmission, markers only she would recognize. If the leak existed, it would move. And she would follow. The team inserted quietly into a decoy zone. No real target, just open terrain and hidden overwatch. Ava monitored the spectrum. Minutes passed. Then, signal spike, multiple, directional jamming attempts. They took the bait. Enemy forces mobilized toward the false coordinates. But this time, air support was already airborne. Waiting. Ava tracked the signal origin. Primary node active, she said calmly. Location, Reaper asked. She transmitted coordinates to the waiting strike aircraft. Seconds later, precision missiles erased the concealed command post hidden inside a warehouse complex miles away. The jamming ceased instantly. The trap had reversed. Silence returned to the desert. But this time, it belonged to them. When they returned to base, there was no celebration. Just quiet acknowledgement. In the locker room, the same operator who once teased her sat down beside her. You know, he said, unlacing his boots, when you first showed up, I figured you were temporary. She didn't respond. He continued, now I'm hoping you never leave. She gave a faint smile. Batteries still holding, he chuckled. Yeah, guess they are. Later that night, Ava stood alone outside the hangar. Stars scattered across the sky. The battlefield was never just bullets and explosions. Sometimes it was frequencies, patterns, invisible wars waged through data. She had never needed a rifle to hold the line. Because information, properly wielded, was a weapon. Reaper stepped beside her. Command wants to formally integrate you into long-term operational planning, he said. That wasn't the plan when I signed up, she replied softly. Plans change. He studied her. You saved this team twice. She looked toward the horizon. They saved me too. He extended his hand, not as a commander, but as a teammate. She shook it. From that night forward, no one called her, just the radio girl. She was the one who heard the battlefield before it erupted. The one who saw the ambush before the first shot. The one who turned the enemy's curiosity into their downfall. And somewhere out there, those who once believed they had measured the American shadow learned something terrifying. The shadow was listening.